What could it mean to let the leeway of a jug be its own inaneness? What could it mean to let the jug be on its own accord? To let the inanation of the jug be its very own specific emptiness that is its characteristic holding trait? The danger and the thing, or the loss of nearness and proximity. Are we at all in a situation to find a trait of physicality of a jug on its own accord? Ask after and towards how a thing is on its own in the place of a phenomenal temporal encountering that is not driven by sheer rendering, the sheer rendering of everything to its intelligibility, nor by getting things right, avoiding respectively making disappear any contradiction. What if contradictory traits pull and draw through and through the vibration and bestowing of reverberation, and if our very approach is what is withering this in the realm of the thing? Could this have to do with our way of holding that became a sheer willingness to will in modernity, and be it the will for a hold? Is our obsession with permanency and durability for the sake of endurability what may paralyze us in this regard? In order to get near to anything, it seems our only move that we know of is to push away all distance, to soak respectively away the emptiness that spans a pulse of its own realm in between. The history of being, of the event of being, is the history or event of its own disguise. With techniques, we are disclosing in a way all at once, disguising what we were concerned by at all to engage in relation of a disclosive dwelling in the first place to come to begin with. But how is this along with vacant verisimilitude, Dasein, its molding and consecrating, not a moment of isolation, but an endowment of a belonging togetherness, while still caring for the care of there being a possibility of a thoroughly altering by an occasioning? The whole of which a tradition of thinking called metaphysics speaks is first and foremost not simply addressable, according to Heidegger. But what we can say is that in the metaphysical questioning as such, beings itself as such and as a whole stand in question, and as such in a speaking of language. We can notice and remark that in terms of science, we relate to the actual essence of things, so it says, the order of things as they really are, or as the order really is, and nothing else. Heidegger pays attention to this remark, and nothing else. The remark that to this annex there is a sense is what Heidegger will call for. It's not senseless that we make this annex, but it may be nothing. No thing that compels us to do so, to speak out and nothing else. What and how does this annex foment in contrast to a technoscientific world rendering? Technoscience produces them objects. It makes them actually up, and it gives them an image. The difference would be a belonging together that does not settle cross-charge or cross-compute traits and aspects, and in this vein reduce them, level and finish them off, and for the application of the same denominator. Simultaneously a world which is jointed and divided respectively, sufficiently in sakes of affairs, which do all follow the exact same set of rules. The development of technology techniques is a development of man. Man attains together with technology techniques power. Society is a development by means of techniques. With it goes a certain idea of world, which stands in relation to the actuality of the world. Man and world are already a finishing and making ready preparation on a certain figure. In quotation marks, having an image of man, a worldview. The world and the thing appears in its image in a way in which we no longer have a notion that they do concern, address, go about, and come at each other. Globalization is only apparent, seemingly unity of the world. A unity of world which builds on its division. In quotation marks, form of world encompassing, all encompassing connectivity. A all-spanning net of activity and connectivity. What is the world as world, asks Heidegger. Is it a kind of connecting link, a nexus place of history, an all-encompassing connection or medium between polarities? Do we need a cosmological conception of world to speak about the world as world, a metaphysical notion of world, a historical philosophical conception of world, aiming at the question of history? Why should we understand this as a concept or notion of world at all? Could also be a concept of history. The notion of world, is it a question about the realization, actualization, reality of this notion? Is there an actuality to this notion of the world? Not to develop a general theoretical concept and then amplify that, but to ask from where is Hegel speaking to us there? The question about effectiveness and action, an effective action. World event, according to Hegel, characterized by an event of reason, a form of the world spirit in the world and as world. Realization of the world spirit, not a logical question per se, but set in a historical line of development. The notion of the world to be put back to the relation of man, animal, and stone. In the center is the question of the essential abiding. In quotation marks, there are questions that we actually have to have understood as a prerequisite, basically and fundamentally, in order to go on. At the same time, we cannot go on without answering these questions. To what extent does this work? In quotation marks, kind of stumbling. What does it mean to speak of an essential abiding, of the essence? The question of the animal and the animalness of the animal. Not to be inferred by hypothetical observation, no generic concept, what all animals have in common, for instance, or generality of everyday and empirical observation, something that precedes any description of the animal instead. The question of the essence of life emerges or comes forth when we ask about the essence of the animal. A certain kind of circularity distinguished from progress, going from one detail to the next, determining positive features, a bad infinity, and distinguishing them from each other. A question about the essence unfolds in a certain handling of things, mathematization of sciences, system-logical, object-driven language to get out of imperfect reality. Empirically, actual sciences give fully valid and fully comprehensive provability, given objects on the level of pure mathematization and construction. But what is a thing as thing?